Good morning, everyone. Please start making your way to your seats so we can start our meeting. Thank you. Okay, good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's board meeting, including those listening via live stream. It is great to be able to gather everyone together again in person for a meeting. I appreciate everyone's flexibility for the past 14 months as we met virtually. All of those with microphones at your desk, please be sure to get close to your mic when speaking so that everyone can hear you. So let's move on to general business. To begin this morning, I'd like to entertain a motion and a second from the board to go into executive session later today. Cindy, please call the roll. No, we need a motion and a second.
So
first.
moved.
Second.
Okay, Cindy, please call the roll.
Curator Burnsick,
Yes.
Curator Chapman,
Yes.
Curator Graham,
Yes.
Curator Graves,
Yes.
Curator Hobrock,
Yes.
Curator Holloway,
Yes.
Curator Lehman,
Yes.
excuse me, Curator Winokur,
Yes.
Curator Williams.
Yes.
All right, all votes in favor.
Okay, motion carries. I would now like to ask the board secretary to administer the oaths of office for our newest members and those who joined us during the pandemic. I'd like to have the following individuals join Cindy at the podium: Curators Hobrock, Winokur, Graves, and Student Representative Williams.
Is that mic on?
After me. I, Robin Winokur, solemnly swear
I, Robin Winokur, do solemnly swear
that I will support the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
as a member of the Board of Curators
as a member of the Board of Curators of the University of Missouri System.
Congratulations. Henry. I, Remington Williams, do solemnly swear
I, Remington Williams, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and that I will faithfully demean myself
as the student representative to the Board of Curators
as the student representative to the Board of Curators
of the University of Missouri.
of the University of Missouri System.
I, Todd Graves, do solemnly swear
I, Todd Graves, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
that I will faithfully demean myself
as a member of the Board of Curators
as a member of the Board of Curators
of the University of Missouri.
of the University of Missouri System.
Congratulations. That's right. I, Greg Hobrock, do solemnly swear
I, Greg Hobrock, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and the Constitution of the State of Missouri,
and that I will faithfully demean myself
and I will faithfully demean myself
as a member of the Board of Curators
as a member of the Board of Curators
of the University of Missouri.
of the University of Missouri System.
Congratulations.
congratulations and welcome to the board. All right, we'll move on to the board chair report. Okay. Good morning and thank you all for joining us for today's board meeting. It is so nice to be back in person and on campus here at Mizzou. Special thanks to Mizzou and the system leaders, including President Choi, for making this meeting possible today. I know a lot of prep work went into it. We have a big agenda ahead, so I'm going to dive right into recognizing those faculty members at each of our universities who have really pushed the envelope on research and creative works this past year. As we will see through their accomplishments, they execute on our critical research mission each and every day. At this time, I'll share examples from each of our universities. First is Dr. Yao Erdu Jimfi, Assistant Professor in the Civil Engineering Department at Mizzou. His expertise lies in developing cutting-edge database solutions and products geared toward improving transportation systems, management, and operations. Most recently, Dr. Yao, as he prefers to be called, received an NSF career grant to further his DASH platform, a cloud-based data sharing program which focuses on traffic management. His research aims to develop new sources of data to speed up the safe introduction of autonomous and connected vehicle technologies. He also hopes that with this funding, he can engage local high school students to encourage them to pursue civil engineering as a career choice. From UMKC, I'd like to recognize Dr. Mark Johnson, Professor and Chair of the Department of Oral and Craniofacial Sciences at UMKC. He is also Director of the UMKC Center of Excellence in the Study of Dental and Musculoskeletal Tissues, CEMT. Dr. Johnson has longstanding interest in the molecular basis of human disease, and for the past 25 years has focused on the molecular genetics of osteoporosis. Dr. Johnson leads a team at UMKC which received a $5.4 million grant from the National Institute of Aging to continue research into the effects of aging on bone and muscle loss. From Missouri S&T, I actually want to recognize two recent career awardees. Dr. Xiumin Samhuang, Assistant Professor in Medical and Aerospace Engineering, and Dr. Jonathan Obrist-Farner, Assistant Professor of Geology and Geophysics. Dr. Song's research interests are physical human-robot interaction, physical human-human interaction, human movement assistance, rehabilitation robotics, wearable devices, energy harvesting from human movement, design and instrumentation of medical devices. His research focused on how humans and robots communicate and interpret each other's intentions, resulted in an NSF Faculty Early Career Development Award. Dr. Obrist-Farner also awarded an NSF Faculty Early Career Development Award, researches the history of earthquakes along the North American Caribbean tectonic plate boundary, which runs through the Caribbean Sea from Haiti to the Guatemala-Mexico border. The research finding from this project will also be used to educate Missouri elementary and middle school students about earthquakes. And last but not least, from UMSL, Dr. Patricia Parker, the E. Desmond Lee Endowed Professor in Zoological Studies at UMSL and Senior Scientist at the St. Louis Zoo. I actually worked at the St. Louis Zoo while I was in graduate school here at Mizzou. Dr. Parker's expertise is in evolutionary biology with a focus on bird or avian populations. She has received more than $4 million in grants for research and other projects and has authored or co-authored over 200 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Dr. Parker was recently elected to the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. She has received many awards, including the Order of Scientific Merit from the Citizens of Galapagos, the Stephen J. O'Brien Award from the American Genetic Association, and the St. Louis Zoo Conservation Award. Once again, these examples show just a handful of the exciting and inspiring work taking place across our universities. I continue to be impressed each time I learn about the lifelong careers and commitment to research that many of them carry out. And I'm especially proud to be able to celebrate their successes as we learn about new awards and funding for this impressive work. I look forward to the opportunities to get back to engaging with faculty more closely as we transition back to in-person meetings. With that, I'll conclude my report so we can jump into the business of the day. Okay, Dr. Choi, I will turn it over to you for the President's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Chapman. And it is great to be back in person after 16 months. And I know that it has been a challenging period for all of you, but thank you for your many contributions. I'm going to ask the team to put my presentation on. And Chair Chapman, thank you. Well, at the heart of a university is the commitment to support our students. And I can't be more proud of the students that participated in this very interesting 16-month period. The class of 2020 and 2021 represent the best that we have. And their resilience and their commitment to excellence, they are tremendously appreciated. We've had more than 36,000 degrees and certificates awarded by this University of Missouri system during those 2 years. And seeing the parents and the students come for commencement was truly, truly special. So let's congratulate them. So jumping right in to updates. And this is the admissions update. And what you can see is the freshman applicants, freshmen accepted, transfer applicants, and transfer accepted. And we have a 3-year comparison. And when you look at 2021 data, if it is shown in red, that means it's a decline from 2020. Green means it's an increase. So on the application and the application side, Mizzou and UMSL are down. But as you can see, UMKC is up and Missouri S&T is slightly at the same level. But on the accepted side, Mizzou is down. But look at UMKC, S&T. UMSL is down as well. Now what we have to do is work very hard to ensure very low summer melt, and students are still applying. When they hear that we are going to have in-person experiences at all of our universities, they are making the decision that it is the right time to attend the University of Missouri. On the transfer side, applications were mixed at the 4 universities, but the acceptances, the yield, are up. And so we're very happy about this, but our work is not done. The enrollment managers and the entire team, academic team at the universities, are working so hard to ensure that we have a great class of students that we can educate as the next generation. Research proposals. I'm going to give you a second to look at the numbers. Once again, 2019, 2020, and 2021, same point in time comparison. And what is impressive is that despite the pandemic, despite the ability of some faculty members to be able to work in their laboratory with their students, the percentage increase in total proposal value was about 24% year over year. That is a very good sign because proposals are the leading indicators. Total research award, same thing. We've seen about a 19% increase for the entire system year over year. Our faculty members are working hard. But in addition to that, we have staff members that work in pre-award, post-award, staff members that run the center laboratories to ensure that our faculty, graduate and undergraduate students have the tools that they need to succeed. Here's where we need some work. Proposals and awards are leading indicators, but what is measured by AAU, what is measured by the NSF is expenditures. And the expenditure increase is not as dramatic. Part of the reason is that all of our research offices are understaffed with post-award and other types of professional staff that are needed to process the research proposals to ensure that the expenditures match the awards that we receive. So additional investments will be made in those key areas to grow research. So going back, as Chair Chapman did, to recognizing our faculty, I want to start off by recognizing Professor Zandra de Arajo with co-PIs Dr. Sam Aden and Dr. Amber Candela. Dr. Candela's from UMSL. This is what I'm talking about when I say meaningful collaboration. They received $2.5 million to work with algebra teachers throughout the state of Missouri to improve their proficiency in delivering algebra education. What we don't want to do is in our K through 12 schools to lose students because of our disinterest in STEM, mathematics. And so they're going to be coming up with a creative solution so that we get more students involved in algebra, involved in other mathematics and sciences so that we can have them continue their studies in high school and in college. The next is UMKC. Ms. Maria Myers is internationally recognized for her work in entrepreneurship and innovation. She is the key architect of SourceLink, which provides innovators and entrepreneurs with funding mechanisms and government support. Using the same strategy, she was able to develop an innovation network to help support our response to COVID. Even though COVID is waning, we all know that airborne diseases and other pandemics are on the horizon. So the work that she is doing is making not only Kansas City, but the entire state and the nation safer. At Missouri S&T, Dr. Sajal Das and co-PI Samuel Frimpong received $840,000 from NSF. From the National Science Foundation, getting amounts over $500,000 is rare because a typical grant is about $300,000. So this collaboration is designed to develop the cybersecurity infrastructure to protect our businesses, our military, and our health security. Because as many of us have learned, cybersecurity or the cyberspace is the next frontier. And research like this help keep all of us safe. Last but not least is Dr. Xiumin Samhuang and Dr. Dimitri Nusino from UMSL. They received from the NIH $1.2 million on trying to better understand circadian rhythm and its effects on lipid metabolism, and to be able to control the creation of energy, the creation of metabolic waste. All of these are so critical to understanding how our bodies function while we are awake and while we are asleep. These types of fundamental research will make a breakthrough in the clinical application down the road. I'm going to end with a few slides on legislative update. And I'll first begin by thanking each and every one of you, starting with the board, for the strong support for our collective legislative strategy, both at the state level and at the federal level. This year, we received $432 million in core appropriation, and this is the first time in at least 5 years where we have received increases in core appropriation. $10 million for Next Gen, Precision Health, and $5.4 million for the other 3 universities. Also this year, after almost 13 years of being faced with the cap on Senate Bill 389, House Bill 297 was passed by the House and the Senate. Overwhelming support for this in both houses. And what the lifting of the cap would do was to allow us to continue to make investments in the key priorities: faculty hiring, staff hiring, merit increases, as well as infrastructure that is needed for student success and research success, as well as engagement. But any future increase in tuition will be carefully evaluated with the board, with consultation from many groups, because affordability is a key factor. But because of affordability, if we are not able to make investments in faculty and classrooms, and that those two factors lead to a longer time to graduate, we are not making education more affordable. So the key fact is, how do we get our students the high-quality education and allow them to graduate on time with lower debt? In addition to $432 million this year, we received an additional $34 million from the state. As you can see, it goes to various organizations within the system, starting with the largest at $15 million for VMDL, which is a veterinary medicine diagnostic lab that serves so many farmers and producers in the state of Missouri. This could not have happened without the leadership of Governor Parson and our state leaders in the Senate and the House. They believe in higher education. All you have to do is look at the bills that they passed and the projects that they supported. So we are grateful for their leadership and thankful for their support. Let me end my remarks by sharing that we have two system leaders who joined us today, for whom this will be the last Board of Curators meeting. First is Steve Graham. Steve, can you stand up for a second so that people know who you are? That was a joke. Everybody knows Steve Graham. He's been here 36 years. After 36 years, he's going to be sailing into the wild blue yonder and enjoy his grandchildren and take up some other opportunities. So Steve, thank you for your 36 years of service. Next up is Dr. Christine Holt. May I ask you to stand? She joined the university during a very tumultuous time, around 2015, and she has guided the Office of the Provost at MU, as well as serving as an effective, compassionate Chief of Staff for the UN President. Christine will be leaving us later this summer to become the Chancellor of University of Arkansas Hope Texarkana. And Christine, we wish you the very best of success, because the mission of that university is just as important as the mission of this university, to create excellence in student success and scholarship. So congratulations, and we're going to miss you. That concludes my remarks, Chair Chapman.
All right, thank you, President Choi. Are there any questions for President Choi from the board? Okay. So I'll now turn it over to Student Representative Williams for his report.
Thank you, Chairman Chapman and President Choi. I'm going to break the podium in. This is my fourth or fifth one of these reports, but my first one not wearing pajamas or sports shorts, so I want to make sure that was seen. So thank you. So first, for our inter-campus student council update, a lot of students around the state and in our system were really excited to be able to take part in graduation ceremonies that fit their campus in the best way possible. So I was happy to be able to attend in-person events both at Mizzou Arena, the Hearn Center, and Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, and then also log on to virtual commencements at UMSL and also watch a recording of SMT. So that was great. Thank you for all the administrators that helped kind of pitch in and make the decisions that were both best for our students, but also best for the safety of all those involved. Also, at the campus, individual campus levels, elections have kind of went through and the cycle's been adjusted. So as we visit the other campuses throughout the year, be on the lookout for kind of introductions and bios to the new student leaders that have been elected at those campuses. There we go. So here at Mizzou, for those of you Mizzou alums, you probably remember the Summer Welcome Program, and that's in full swing here as we were walking around even today, there were people walking around with yard signs and stuff like that. So that's really a great program that allows incoming students and transfer students to kind of get their feet wet and get to see what life's about in Columbia, get to see the programs that they could be a part of, all the communities and residence halls, things like that, that kind of allow them to hit the ground running when they start their classes in August. And it's also just a great program because the mentees, is that young man in the yellow shirt there, used to be the mentors just years ago. So they're summer welcome leaders or people that went through the program or looking for leadership roles, and it's a great way to just kind of introduce themselves, both to leadership and also to new faces on campus. And also there we have a student, Veronica Fritz is a senior biomedical engineering and mathematics major, and she was the recipient of a Udall scholarship, one of only 55 in the nation this year and only the 6th person in Mizzou history to receive the prestigious award. And her research examines more sustainable agriculture techniques that kind of looks at how much water soil is absorbing and things of that nature, and how that her findings can be used to find more sustainable but profitable agricultural methods in the future. Next at UMKC, we have the story of Adriana Gonzalez, who's a recent Park Hill High School graduate in Kansas City, for those of you familiar with the area. And she's one of the 1,000 recipients this year of the KC Scholars Scholarship, and that's a great program that has a long history with the system and with several of our universities. And she joins the network of over 5,300 students that have been able to attend the college of their dreams with little to no student loan debt. And she's just excited to have the opportunity to get an education at her hometown university, UMKC, and be able to start the process of giving back to her community earlier than she even thought possible. And also, this is a great story of a kind of cross-campus collaboration of Cassidy Jones, who's a UMKC pharmacy student here at their campus in Columbia. So a great partnership between UMKC and Columbia, and she's really involved in the Farm to Farm program, which is through the Missouri Agribility Project. And the goal of that is to increase awareness of healthcare needs and pharmacy needs within the agricultural community throughout mid-Missouri, but also all Missouri. And that's really important as you look at the numbers where, such as 98 of 101 of the classified rural Missouri counties are classified as a healthcare professional shortage zone. So when we look at things like that, we look at ways that our system and our students can start giving back to our state and in our region, and that's just a great program that kind of jumpstarts that. S&T, things are in full swing as always. So on the right there, you see one of the combat robotics team, which is one of the 19 student-led student design and experiential learning center teams. So they just recently competed in a BOTS KC competition. So going back to what President Choi mentioned earlier about the importance of STEM education and starting it young, getting the seed planted, that's a great way that some of our students travel throughout the state and are able to put on kind of showcases through competitions. This is kind of a gladiator style where they kind of see who can be the last robot standing, that are really fun for young people to see the cool things and the important things you can do with a STEM education or just with education in general. So it's a great program, and great to see that they're back to being able to do competitions in person. And on the left there, you have Zhangxi Yuan, who's a PhD candidate at S&T, and he was the recent winner of the Lagalier Sustainability Energy Fellowship, which was established by 2 S&T grads to find more sustainable and profitable ways to find energy sources and things of that nature. So he received a $70,000 award to continue his postdoctoral research with drones and how they can examine solar panels and the use and the condition of those panels in a much cheaper and more effective way. So a lot of great things going on there. And finally at UMSL, this is a recent initiative that was led by some faculty, staff, and administrators, but a student actually kind of took it on, and the initiative was to create swap boxes out of kind of unused newspaper stands that were no longer being used, and they were thinking about taking away, but didn't know if we could find something to do with them. So actually, the editor of the outgoing editor, Wesley Bacon, came up with the idea to create free little libraries for all the campus community to enjoy. So just, kind of quick, simple, not a hard fix or a grand lot of steps needed project, but something that makes it an immediate improvement to the beauty of campus, but also kind of bringing people together around literature. And then I want to close with the story of Beauty Cooper there on the right. She's a psychology and philosophy student at UMSL, and she has quite the story. When she graduated high school, she was the first of her 4 siblings to do so, and went right into caring for other people, caring for 3 generations of family, her mother, her sister, and her children. So her goals kind of got put on the back burner, and kind of went through life, was doing some online ministry work and other work like that. But in 2014, she experienced a bout with stomach cancer. And around the same time, a couple years ago, her daughter graduated from UMSL, and that kind of sparked something inside her to get back and kind of get back on the fast lane of putting her dreams and kind of focusing on herself. So she enrolled in community college and then transferred to UMSL in 2020, is on pace to graduate in 2022 with philosophy and psychology majors. But during COVID, the pandemic, like everyone, she kind of witnessed some tougher times, but UMSL, she said, really stepped in and provided the framework, like she says in that quote there, to allow her to come back, finish strong, finish what she started. She's a self-proclaimed not typical college student. She graduated high school in the mid-'80s, but she's chipping away, and I'm excited to see her hopefully get her degree in 2022. And a great little side story on that is when the tough times were kind of hitting this past semester, but UMSL reached out and kind of helped her along, gave her the tools she needed to put in the work. After she made it through, she sent a letter to Chancellor Soblik, and she was very surprised and very impressed and very happy, and shared that Chancellor Soblik wrote one back. So thank you for always caring for students, everyone up here and everyone in this room, for putting students first. And that's just a great story of how the investment in a single student can go a long way. So thank you all. With that, is there any questions?
Yeah. Jeff and I want to know how we go watch that combat robotics thing.
We can get a link, or we'll go to the next one in Kansas City.
All right.
Anything else?
You're invited to watch it live.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Remington, for that update. It's always great to hear what our students are accomplishing, so thank you very much. Okay, our next action item, our next item of business is to approve the new board executive committee and standing committee appointments for this year. These are located on page 21 and 22 of our documents. And we will be removing Keith Holloway, whose appointment was pulled this week due to the convening of special session. May I have a motion and a second from the board to approve these amended appointments, like I mentioned, removing Keith Holloway?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, the board would now like to recognize 2 special people who are with us today, former Curator Snowden and former Student Representative Avery Volcker. Phil, would you please come and join me at the podium? All right, thank you, Valerie. All right, it's my honor to recognize you for your 6 years of service on the board and the university with this resolution. I want to read a couple of statements from the resolution for everyone to hear today. All right, there you go, Phil. Okay, Phil is known by his fellow curators to be engaging and enthusiastic in discussions, and always brought the board back to a team approach. And Curator Snowden promoted engagement not only with his leadership, but also with faculty, students, and staff. It was important to him to hear their ideas, experiences, and concerns as a governing board member. All right. Good job, Phil. All right. May I have a motion and a second from the board to approve the resolution recognizing the dedicated service of Phil Snowden to the university?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Phil, thank you for your service. Would you like to say a few words?
This is going to be real short. I know last night was long, but I'll just say that this has been a great honor for me to serve on the Board of Curators. I told people that I walked on this campus in 1956, and I've had a 65-year love affair with this university. And, you know, this isn't the end, but I would like to say one final thing. My wife, Jane, is with me, and I'd like to share this honor with her. And in 2 months, we'll have been married 60 years. I met her on the campus here. So thank you all, and good luck. And Daryl, thank you.
Thank you very much, Phil, for your service. You will be missed. Avery, would you please now join me at the podium? All right. Congratulations. Thank you. All right, it's my honor to recognize you for your 2 years of service to the board and to the university with this resolution. During your term, you did a great job representing the students from across the system and the board and at the board table. I want to read a couple of statements from the resolution for everyone to hear today. Avery was committed and engaged while working with the board as he advocated for students, constantly maintaining a positive attitude, actively listening, and offering incisive opinions. He grew as a leader in this role. He urged students to become engaged on their campuses, knowledgeable of board actions, and to attend the curator meetings. May I have a motion and a second from the board to approve the resolution recognizing the dedicated service of Avery Volcker to the university?
I move approval of the resolution honoring Avery for his tremendous service as a student curator. I think we all learned a lot from you, Avery, and we'll forever remember you as an outstanding student curator.
Second.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Avery, for your service.
You know, today I don't have a blank piece of paper to pull out of my pocket for another joke. I actually do have a piece of paper with writing on it, but I thought I'd skip the whole thing. I'll be brief like Phil, but unlike Phil, my first day on campus here was not until this previous fall semester. But ever since being on this board, it has just been the experience of a lifetime. These past 2 years have been amazing. I have appreciated working with everybody in this room and getting to meet everybody, and I will cherish this experience and all the relationships that I've made here for the rest of my life. Thank you, guys.
Curators Sunvold and Stillman were unable to join us today, but we plan on recognizing them later on in the year, okay? Next, we have the consent agenda. I have requested that item H from the consent agenda be pulled and be taken up at a subsequent meeting. Are there any questions from the board for any of the remaining consent agenda items? Okay, hearing none, may I have a motion and a second from the board to approve the consent agenda as presented in your materials?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. And for a little bit more detail on item H, it was a security resolution. We're going to take a look at that in a little bit more detail, and we'll get back to the board on that. Okay? So the motion carries. Okay, so Curator Holbrook, I now turn it over to you for the Finance Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. The Finance Committee has 6 action items that we will need to deal with today. And I would ask that Vice President Rapp will introduce the UMKC Master Plan, and Chancellor Aguilar will make the presentation and available for answers and questions that you may have.
Thank you, Curator Holbrook. In 2017, the curators approved the new capital planning process, and we revised the CRRs that requires the campuses to prepare a master plan and present that to the board for approval every 5 years. Each university will be presenting their campus master plans during the next few Board of Curators meetings, and we'll start with UMKC today. Just as a little background before Chancellor Agarwal gets started, a campus master plan is really meant to be a long-term planning document. It doesn't supplant the 5-year capital plans or financial plans that are presented. It builds on the university's strategic plan with design principles that serve as a framework for future physical developments on the campus. It also provides long-range planning for architecture, design, land use, space use, landscape, transportation, parking, and utilities. It really serves as a roadmap for the future of the campus and becomes a critical tool in confirming that short-term projects are working in conjunction with the long-term plans and goals. If you think about not having a master plan, each decision would be made about campus facilities, whether it's a new building, renovation, or infrastructure improvement in isolation, without a comprehensive vision in mind. The campus master plan also has to provide for flexibility so that it can accommodate shifting academic priorities and economic conditions. But I just want to provide that to you as a backdrop as you listen to Chancellor Agarwal's presentation today.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for having me here. So UMKC last developed a master plan in 2014, and so much has changed since then. So over the past 6 months, we at UMKC have engaged in an incredibly robust set of conversations across UMKC, across the community, and conversations that involve almost 3,000 people. The firm of Ayers St. Gross out of Baltimore led this effort for us to create guidelines to follow as we carefully balance renovations, new construction with available resources. So as Ryan said, it is important to note that a campus master plan is an imagining of the physical and facilities needs of the campus to support a strategic plan and to support UMKC forward. It also provides a long-range guidance for architecture, land use, space use, landscape, transportation, parking, and utilities. At its best, it is a roadmap for the future of the campus. It is not in any way a contract. In the overview today, you will see that we separate the master plan into a near-term and a long-term plan. The near term is approximately from now up to 15 years, and the long term is beyond that. Will all the projects presented here be completed? We hope so, but not necessarily. So as you can see, UMKC stretches through the heart of Kansas City. We truly are Kansas City's university, with 2 locations in the heart of a community, one near downtown and one near Country Club Plaza, the Nelson Museum, several key research businesses like MRI and the Star Wars Institute, and many diverse neighborhoods. This plan looks for ways to enhance first impressions and collective identity of the campuses while making them more welcoming, engaging for the community. This is a critical time to plan for UMKC's future, and a master plan reflects that. It is informed by both a strategic plan as well as the UMKC Forward Initiative and the investments we will make in key areas, from student success and faculty development to research and community engagement. UMKC needs a flexible framework and plan to guide decisions for its physical campus. Now, UMKC has evolved over recent years. Over the past 15 years, we have invested in facilities or with projects that include the Health Sciences Building, the Henry W. Block Executive Hall for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, the Robert W. Plaster Free Enterprise and Research Center, which all of you will get to visit when you come to our campus for the next meeting in September, the Miller Nichols Learning Center, and the Atterbury Student Success Center. But we cannot stop there. The 2021 plan recommends continued building renovations to align with modern learning and research while simultaneously reducing the footprint of buildings with poor facility conditions, as indicated by the Facilities Condition Needs Index, FCNI. For instance, a physical plant is aging, and building condition and functional adequacy needs to be addressed. We need to modernize space and align with current learning techniques and research demands. On this chart, as you see, anything that's in orange or red is with an FCI of close to 0.5 or more, which means they are in dire need of renovation or replacement. So for example, these 6 buildings, Schofield Hall, Spencer Hall, where you see those chemistry labs, the School of Medicine. That building was built in the 70s and has not been renovated since then at all. It's becoming really aged. The School of Law, 4747 Troost, and Flarsheim Hall are perfect examples of physical spaces that still have great value, but need significant renovation or modernization. The near-term plan for the Volker Campus is focused on building renovations and space to accommodate student-focused programs like housing, recreation, athletics, counseling, tutoring, etc. Near-term will also include work on gateways into campus and streetscape improvements. We are kind of beginning to disappear behind all the other development that's taking place in that area, and we're beginning to lose our identity in that area. Now, here's a specific piece. As you know, we demolished student housing, the Oak Place apartments, last year. Right now, those are green spaces. Through this effort with this company, we did surveys and did an assessment of the housing needs of our students, and we need about 500 new beds to fulfill the demand. The current housing that we have is also getting old, and so that is creating a lack of interest from our students. But what is planned in this master plan is this space that you see in the orange, 2 and 3. That would be new student housing that we'll put in. Just to put this in perspective, right there at number 1 is where the new streetcar terminus will be in Kansas City. So the streetcar is being extended all the way to UMKC, and then it will connect us all the way up to River Market, north of downtown. And it's for free. So we expect a lot of ridership by our students. Also to orient you that building right to the white building to the south of this is where Whole Foods is. So it's a very important piece of our campus. This site is of great interest to private developers, and we will come back to the board with some kind of a plan to seek a private-public partnership to build student housing. Opportunities to enhance our open spaces and create spaces that encourage gathering, collaboration, and reflection will also be achieved in the master plan, as this slide demonstrates. There will be areas for outdoor learning, for lawn seating, for hammocks for students to hang out on. This all provides us spaces that excite students and support our community. Among these plans also is the proposed closing of the 51st Street from Cherry Street, where the Student Union is, to Rockhill Street. This piece of public street goes right through the middle of our campus. If this were to become pedestrian only, it would totally change the look of our campus. So we will continue to work with the neighbors and with the city to see if this can be achieved. If you also remember, 51st Street going west is actually closed because there's steps that go down toward Oak Street and to Whole Foods. So it's only extending that closure all the way to Rockhill Street. So we're excited about that possibility. Now, the near-term plan for the Health Sciences Campus is focused on building, renovations, renewal, and providing additional space to meet instructional needs, as well as clinics that support the community and provide critical skills for our students. So renovation of the medical school building, which is on the top here in blue, maybe in addition to it in the orange. The medical school is one school that can actually increase its student capacity. Our dental school, which is in the bottom left, has clinics that are aging very badly. In this area, we compete with the private sector for patients, and as those conditions deteriorate, we're beginning to lose patients. And then in the future, as we expand, perhaps an interprofessional health sciences building that we can, as we get more into research with precision health, that could accommodate future hires. We'll also change the streetscape and the landscaping to provide safety and sustainability for our community there at the Health Sciences Campus. As you can see what it looks like on the top left and what we imagine it could look like in the rest of the slide. The long-term vision for the Volcker Campus can be seen here. It provides a flexible framework for continued renewal, partnerships, and expansion. The master plan envisions a connected campus that celebrates the identity of UMKC in Kansas City and provides at the same time places and spaces that are inclusive and support a diverse campus population. So in the light yellow, you will see proposed future buildings that we could build. Especially on the top part of this is where Troost Avenue is. We would like to have more buildings that open out on Troost, as that is a gateway to diverse neighborhoods. For the Health Sciences Campus, the long-term vision has similar goals of renewal, partnerships, and expansion. We have great assets there in partnership with Truman Medical, Children's Mercy Hospital, and a multitude of other health-related facilities there, and we can leverage those to build a really high-density campus there. A central open space, perhaps paired with intersections and streetscaping improvements, will also benefit the entire community, and we are beginning to work with the city and our partners there to start on this right away. And then lastly, the Epperson House. We have also considered ways to leverage a land in the near term to activate the campus and meet needs of both the district and the community. The Epperson House is a perfect example of this. Those of you who know the Epperson House, it was a mansion that's about 18,000 square feet. It was built in the 1920s. It's a beautiful building on the outside and on the inside, but has been boarded up for a long time now. We cannot really use it because it's not compliant with code, and getting it up to code will be millions of dollars. It just sits there and deteriorates. It also happens to be known as one of the most haunted buildings in the United States. The anticipated change to state law, which is on the governor's desk regarding the sale of campus property, may allow us to consider different options than we have been able to consider in the past and be even better stewards of a campus property. And then lastly, we need to make sure that the campus plan is rooted in sustainability practices, investment in existing facilities, as well as sustainable design. New facilities will reduce carbon and energy usage. Landscape improvements and transportation recommendations also ensure resiliency, stewardship of the campus, and of our environment now and into the future. So thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to take any questions.
Any members of the committee or any other curators have any questions for Molly? Well, Molly, you know I do. I've raised this concern one other time. I think it's a great plan, and I think it's forward-looking. And I'm not really interested in seeing the bill because I know it's going to be very high. However, I do have one concern in the plan that wasn't addressed, and that is basically your infrastructure system. You've outlined a lot of great things here that will really enhance your campus, and I support that. But I'm trying to figure out how you're going to balance what you're trying to present here with your infrastructure needs, and particularly your STEAM system, which is going to also have to be dealt with. And I've seen some estimates on that one, and enough to choke a horse. So, my concern is, how do you balance all that?
Yeah, I think the needs that you're describing, Curator Hoberock, are urgent and need to be addressed right away in the short-term period. And that is why we're trying to do better with our expenditures and budgets so that we can create a margin that then we can use for strategic investments into these areas. We will also continue to look at different kinds of options instead of always trying to do it ourselves in some of those things. So we will look at partnerships, and perhaps there are different ways to make these things more efficient than just pure replacement. Maybe partnership with the private sector who can run these operations could be a possibility that we should look at to see if that's the best option for UMKC and for the system. But you're right on, in addition to just the buildings and what they look like, is the infrastructure supporting the buildings that also is aging rapidly, and we really need to pay attention to that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none. If there's no further questions, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the 2021 University of Missouri Kansas City Campus Master Plan as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
I need it from a committee member at this stage. Thank you, Jeff. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the 2021 University of Missouri Kansas City Campus Master Plan as presented to you and outline the materials presented as meeting materials.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Curator Hoberock. A motion is made to approve the master plan for UMKC. Do I have a second? Marcy is the second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, if none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, turn it back over to you, Curator Hoberock.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I would like to go back to Vice President Ryan Rapp for the UMC fiscal 2022 operating budget.
Thank you, Curator Hoberock. Today, I'll review the highlights of an approximately $3.7 billion annual operating budget. This was included in your materials. We'll start with just going over the FY22 budget process and what it represents. COVID, had a significant impact on our FY20 and FY21 financials, and will continue to come through in FY22. I do think these plans reflect the actions that were necessary for us to start to emerge from the pandemic. If you note, for the first time since 2016, it actually includes, the President alluded to this, growth in state appropriations, growth in net tuitions and fees, and grants. We haven't seen all three of those in a growth position since 2016. Now, we counter that with the federal fiscal stimulus that's included is assumed to be one time. We've budgeted approximately $50 million in FY22, as that's what we know to be available to us. One of the things we focused on was managing our expenses within our available revenues. For 3 of our universities and MU Healthcare, they all include a performance-based salary pool, and then UMSL, while not having a performance-based salary pool, does have a targeted pool for market salary adjustments. I think that what's critical is we will then move back this fall to resetting our 5-year financial plans as we start to emerge from COVID, and we will be resetting our financial performance targets. You know, as you think about what is the purpose of the budget, it provides really a guide for our institutions and helps us assess our current financial health. We use it as a guide, but have to understand that throughout the year we'll have to make the necessary adjustments to not only meet our strategy but preserve our financial health. And I think as we'll go through this fall, you'll see for FY21, we've done a good job of that and we'll need to continue to do so. From the board's perspective, the board approves the budget and then quarterly and at the end of the year monitors performance against the budget. One of our key metrics in terms of financial performance is our operating margin. And an operating margin is necessary to make the investments in student success and research. So we don't want an operating margin so we can pay a dividend like you might in the private sector, but we also know that running a break-even annual budget and a break-even financial plan will not allow us to make the strategic investments that we need to. This chart is just intended to give an overview of what we saw in FY20, what we're projecting to end in FY21, and then what's laid out in the budget before you today. Really, the underperformance in FY20 was driven by the onset of the pandemic. The overperformance that you're seeing that we're projecting for this year is largely related to the federal stimulus that we either received directly or was provided to us by the state. And so in many ways, I encourage people to think of FY20 and 21. You combine the years, then we start to see more normalized performance. And then as you start to go over to the far right and you look at the FY22 budget, it returns to a more steady state of performance, emergence from the pandemic. But I think we have to keep in mind additional work is necessary to build out the long-term plans to sustain each institution. You know, I think the actions that we've taken with the leadership and the board to date have put us in a good position going forward, but we can't view it that the long-term challenges we faced have somehow passed. They still remain in front of us. The one thing this doesn't account for when we're talking about operating margin is it does not include any of our investment return performance. We will review that this fall. I would say year-to-date, though, our returns on the endowment and retirement plan are running around 30%. So overall, I would project for FY21, you're going to see that our balance sheet has recovered from some of the challenges we face related to FY20. And then the other thing that I wanted to highlight is, you know, I think we've continued to think about, we have to think about revenue growth, we have to think about academic productivity, and then we have to think about operational efficiency. This is just showing you some of the changes we've seen in staffing headcount from FY20 to FY21. We had over 946 eliminations. That included, I think, roughly 12 executive positions. It was about 200 what we've titled as business and administration support services, and then 220 office and administrative support positions. And that's against the backdrop of going into that. Between FY15 and FY19, we'd seen a reduction of 21% or 500, I think it was a little over 500 office and administrative support staff. We then saw further reductions in terms of business and operations and maintenance staff on the order of about 22%. So I think part of what I'm trying to highlight here is we have been focused on operational efficiency and also reshaping our staff. And I think as you start to look at those numbers, you can see that we're trying to take advantage of technology, scale, and also looking to hire a different type of staff than we've had in the past. So just wanted to highlight that. Then moving on to think about the revenue side of what's in this budget. This is really just providing you an overview. I think it's one of the things that when we talk to our rating agencies that really stands out for our university system is we have a really diverse revenue profile. You can see we've got the $50 million of CARES funding identified in the budget. The other thing I'd highlight, and it's continued to grow and be a bigger and bigger part of our overall financial profile, is healthcare is now 40% of our total revenue of the $3.7 billion budget. And then if we then go over to the compensation side and you think about, well, what is that breakdown in terms of spending? You know, if you look, even on a consolidated basis, over 60% of our budget is in people. It's in salaries and wages and benefits. So when we think about where are we going to contain costs, where are we going to find efficiencies, that's part of the equation. Some of the other expenses, our operating expenses that you see there, there's opportunities there. That number is disproportionately high for healthcare, as you've got drug costs and other things included in there. If you took healthcare out of this, our salary and wages and benefits would probably start to approach about 75 to 80% of the overall expenses.
Excuse me, Ryan. If you could go back there. You said obviously salary and wages 46, 15 benefits. That's 61. How'd you get, what in the other category did you mention that could be slid over there too?
What I was getting at is if I showed you this chart for the individual universities, so like healthcare has a disproportionate non-personnel spend, so you've got drug costs and other things in there. If I took healthcare out of this, you would see that combination of salary and benefits start to approach 75 to 80% just at the universities. Correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
May I interrupt you also at this point, Ryan, while we're on this slide? 46% salary and wages, if my understanding is correct in talking with both you and Marcia, that what many of us would traditionally think as a benefit, being paid time off, vacation, these sorts of things, we would typically think as a benefit. If my understanding is correct, that number is included in salary and wages.
That is correct.
Right, and we would typically think of that as a benefit. So if you moved that portion out and you put it over under the benefits package where a lot of us would think it belongs, but that's not how we account for it, that 15% approaches a number closer to 50%? The benefits portion of salary?
50% of salaries and wages.
Yeah,
so,
of salaries.
Yeah.
Somewhere in that
correct,
neighborhood.
Correct.
Okay.
So half of this, half of that.
So, yeah. So anyway, I just, because Ryan and I have been in this conversation numerous times, and I'm not sure that the members of the board understood this because it took me a while to get my hands wrapped around what we were really looking at. And I thought this would be a good place to point this out.
Yeah, if you thought of it, and sometimes in healthcare they refer to it as your productive wages. If you thought of what is then the fringe benefit attached to that, on the staff side, it's about 50% of productive wages. That includes paid time off, medical benefits, dental benefits, retirement. And I think one of the things we have to think about is you've really got to look at that across different sectors, because that's an average across the entire university. So healthcare will have a different number, different parts of the university will have a different number, and that's something we'd have to think about. Just as to kind of wrap this up, you know, for us, the key next step is really, as we're coming out of COVID, is to work on our financial plans this fall and then present those to the board in February. And that's really the process where we talk about what are the strategic investments we need to make, but balancing that against the necessary financial performance and capital needs that we have. We had set financial performance targets prior to COVID. As we come out of that, we'll need to be resetting those. Our typical approach, and we will engage the Finance Committee on this, those will then drive our FY23 budget process. When we talk about setting those financial performance targets, we do take kind of what I call a capital markets-based approach to that. And so we tend to look and say, you know, what is the rating agency's expectations for similar institutions that would be rated in these categories? And so that does allow for us to differentiate between institutions. We're not talking about separate ratings for institutions, but it informs kind of what is the range we need to be in terms of operating margin, revenue growth, and then we think about spendable cash to operation and investments to operations and spendable cash to debt, to think about how the balance sheet needs to be positioned as well. The other critical component of this is the new tuition models. The President referenced that this morning. We will be seeking feedback through the fall from our key constituents, including students, and then pricing and implementation specifics will be presented to the board for approval in the spring of '22. And what I'm really referencing is developing those differential tuition proposals along with the plateaued models for MU and Missouri S&T. With that, I'll pause and answer any questions.
Are there any questions by the committee and/or any board member?
Ryan, if you don't mind, interest expense obviously is very low, and I know we have refinanced, I'm sorry, yeah. As far as interest expense, I know we've refinanced bonds over and over. Are there any other opportunities right now?
So if we had some new money issues, there would be some opportunities. In our current portfolio, if you recall last year during the pandemic, we went out and fixed out our CP. There really aren't any opportunities because we have make-whole calls on all the bonds we have. And I think you have to think about, we've been in what has felt like a historically low interest rate environment over a 10-year period. So really, it would have to be, where do we see a project that we think we could earn a levered return and be issuing new money, and there would be some new opportunities for us. I think we will have some bonds that are probably in the next 2 years, but we'll have a chance to refinance those, but nothing in the next 6 months.
Thank you.
Following up on Jeff, Ryan, you and I know we've begun conversations. Within this budget you proposed, we're out of operations, we're spending roughly an extra $80 million to start to down pay the unfunded vested liability. And you and I know that you and I have had discussions of the possibility of going to the bond markets and buying out that unfunded vested liability to fund the pension plan, and then you would have an interest payment against the bonds, and whether that is more advantageous to this university and our cash flow basis, or just continue to make out of operations the $80 million payment. So we may be back talking about doing that. Ryan and I are not on the same page on that yet, so we're working on it.
Well, I think it will be something that we will discuss at the September meeting, not in specifically what Curator Hobrock's referencing, but we will be coming back with a quinquennium study on the pension plan that the board will then review and approve those set of assumptions. I think once we understand what those new set of assumptions are going to be, then we could start to evaluate, do pension obligation bonds make sense? There are going to be some changes in credit rating methodology that I think you're going to see more of those. We're a little unique in the sense of, though, we hold both the liability and the assets. The few places I've seen it done, it has been where, I'll give the example, Pennsylvania has done this, but they don't hold the asset side of it. They just were trying to fix out the unfunded liability for them, and then the state held that. So there's definitely, it's something worth us looking deeper into, but there'd be a lot of work for us to do that before we were ready to make a recommendation.
Are there any other questions from the committee? Ryan, you're not off that easy. I've got a whole list. When we did the tuition increase, in May, one of my issues at the time was how are these increases going to move forward to student success? How is it going to reduce the cost of the students to get through this university? And you and I have had the conversation. The way we really reduce the cost is get them out quicker. So tell me how we're using some of the money or the money that we set aside in tuition. Explain to me how we're using that within our budget in order to accomplish what we need to do, and that's to get our kids out of these school institutions at a lower cost.
Yeah, President Troy,
Do you want to answer it, or? Yeah,
You can respond. to that.
Let me take the first crack, Creator Holbrook. The key emphasis for us, for all 4 universities, is to hire tenure track faculty, because the reduction in tenure track faculty members have created higher student-to-faculty ratios and the inability to offer some of the classes that our students need to graduate and graduate on time. Many of our students do graduate within 4 years, but we do not want to have a situation where students say, after coming back from study abroad or from co-op, that the class that they need to graduate is full or not being offered that semester. So we're going to ensure that classes are available, and because of the collaboration that is being made possible through e-learning, that class may be available at the other 3 campuses as away from the home campus. But one of the key emphasis also for the tuition increase was to hire faculty who are going to perform research. At all 4 universities, while the research growth has been impressive, we know that it is not sufficient. And so faculty hiring for student success and research would be the key.
Thank you.
And I just, to further emphasize the president's point, you know, just if you took an example, if you look at MU and the budget materials, we note the teaching and research salaries in this budget are increasing by more than $15 million. So I think that reflects exactly what he was describing. And then UMKC is also making some significant investments, I know several millions of dollars. It shows up on the staff side, but it is in their academic support and advising, and it's a key part of their plan in UMKC Forward, and will help drive that time to graduation and student success down.
A little more specific, can you explain to me why we're seeing a reason for increased MU's supplies, services, and others? I think it's line 18, page 2-9. Can you explain that increase to me, please?
So primarily that's related to the carryover of some of the maintenance and repair funds that we receive from the state. The biggest driver of that is some work we're doing in terms of deferred maintenance of the power plant at MU is what's driving that.
Along that same lines, a little bit more specific, in the consolidated financial statement, line 30, I think it's on 2.7, we have a $100 million non-operating item for pension/OPEB. Could you give us an explanation? I think that number's up 20 million from the previous year.
I'll give you my best explanation quickly, and then if we need to, I'd be happy to go through it in more detail. It's where we think we'll fall based on this year. The primary driver of that is what you're seeing in that line item is the difference between our actual and expected earnings on the pension plan, and then the difference in how we have to account for that and how we have to fund that. So from an accounting perspective, we have to amortize that difference over a 5-year period. From a funding perspective, I think we're currently in year 23 that gets amortized over a 23-year period. So it's representing that differential between the earnings on a funding basis and an accounting basis is what we're showing there.
Okay, one more question and I will be done. The UMKC, the slide showed a 0.9, I call it profit, you call it excess revenues over expenses. That's not sustainable long-term for the school. And given the substantial strategic investments they want to make over time, can you or Chancellor Agarwal speak to how we can improve that number? I'm going to support this, but I am very concerned about it. It's too close. So please help me understand how we're going to make it.
So I'll speak to, I think that is a key component. I'd agree that long-term that's not sustainable, and I think that is what we will take up this fall as part of our financial planning. And then specifically to this year, I'll let Chancellor Agarwal add any details he might have.
Hear me? There we go. I got to hold it down. It is very strategic. I agree with you. This is not sustainable in the long run. What has happened in the past at UMKC is the financial situation has been declining, and we have been able to meet our budgets, but we have not made the effort to really invest, because at some point you have to invest to grow out of this situation. What you're seeing here is because we have this year tightened up on our administrative expenses and realigned a lot of expenses to pull out $10 million within the budget and focus those on student success and faculty and research. And those are very strategic, and they are meant to grow us out of this situation. So that's why it looks like it's lower. I think we will end the year much better than that, but we are already making the investments so that the future will be brighter.
Okay, I will take you at your word that the analysis that I will do at the end of the year, you will exceed the 0.99%, and I believe you to do that. Rest assured, a year from today, I will be looking at that number and remembering this conversation. So
I know you
very
will,
much.
Curator Hubbard, and we will deliver.
Are there any other questions from committee members or the full board?
Ryan, one question, totally different area. That is the increase in gifts that you're estimating, roughly 8 million increase, but most of that, of course, is attributable to the Cummer gift. Where are we headed based on what you've looked at insofar as philanthropy, which is going to be a key area going forward? I mean, it's going to be.
Yeah, Curator Graham, that is something as we start to rebuild our financial plans here in the fall that will be a critical area of focus for us. I think each university probably is at a little different place in terms of what opportunities they see in that space, but you know, I think as we bring those forward in February, we'd be able to really get into that, because as we think about on the revenue side, what are going to be our primary areas of focus, it's going to be philanthropy, tuition and fees. You know, state support is critical, but we also understand, as I said, I think, you know, history would tell us when the federal funding recedes, you know, we usually lag about 2 years. So it gives us some time, but there's nothing that I would see long-term that would fix some of those structural issues we'd face there. So, you know, you start to think about what are the opportunities we have in terms of philanthropy, and I think it's going to be varied at each institution. And I know some of our universities are on the cusp of starting capital campaigns as they move forward.
But you'd agree that as we look toward 24 and 25 fiscal years, that's going to become increasingly important.
Yeah, I think and we're seeing it, you know, that's, our endowments are important, but I think what we'll see become and has become equally important to us is kind of that annual giving. And some of that's because when we receive an endowment, it's going to disperse about 4% in terms of a spending distribution annually. And that can really help us in the long term, but also the annual giving has the ability to help us here and now.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If there are no further discussion, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the University of Missouri fiscal year 2022 operating budget as presented to you and outline the materials for this meeting?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the University of Missouri fiscal year 2022 operating budget as presented to you and outline the materials for this meeting be approved.
A motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion from the board? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition, say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, back to you, Curator Holbrook.
We're ways off.
All right.
UMC fiscal 2023 state appropriations request. Again, Vice President Rapp, would you please make that presentation?
Yes, this will be fairly brief. We're requesting that the president be authorized to submit a request of $459 million. We've got our core in here of the $432 million that he referenced this morning. Additionally, we believe we have the opportunity in talking with legislative leadership and others that we will have the ability to pursue an equity increase of approximately $10 million for FY23. We do have this TBD of just understanding that based on the CARES funding and the federal funding that's flowing through, there could be other directives that come up throughout the year. We would definitely coordinate those and keep the board informed of what those are. But to date, we don't know what some of those might be. So our total core funding request is $442 million. And then we have the other curators programs that includes things like UMSLs. And then we do have some new line items that were included this year in our funding, which is the Veterans Law Clinic at MU, the Fisher Delta Center as well. And so that gets you to your total request, along with some of the legislative requirements of approximately $460 million. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions from the committee and/or any other curators? Well, are you surprised again? When I look at the core request, Ryan, I've not heard much about, well, I have heard some about, but I believe that we need to pursue with the state outcome-based core funding. We are the economic driver of education in this state through research. When we look at the success of our students coming out, the wages that they're paid, the number that stay in the state of Missouri, and are economic drivers within this state. I'm not trying to take away from any other institution, but I do understand that we are the economic driver of this state, and we need to start making our case to the legislature that funding should, that success should be a basis or considered in the core funding and the funding from the state. Then we start presenting those arguments to the legislature, to the governor, and make our case. I know that we have a meeting on a system. Do you remember the name of that?
It was from the president had referenced it. It was the Cicero report.
Cicero report, yes. And that's not that I'm advocating we do that, but it is an outcomes-based methodology. I also want to caution S&T. I understand we want to leverage the Cummer gift, and there are great proposals in there. As you finalize those proposals, my suggestion would be to you to break them down into something that can be easily switched and moved, as the legislature sometimes works funny. So walking down and saying, I want $100 million for a project, and they decide they can't spend $100 million, you'd be better off to take that my advice is that you would take that $100 million and break it down into smaller increments so that still meets your overall plan, but then the legislature can move easily, as opposed to just completely saying, no, we're not going to do the $100 million when they could have given you 30 or they could have given you 20. So that's my advice. I know your plans are very ambitious. I know you have the Cummer gift, and I know everybody's anxious to see us leverage that. I just caution us as to how we approach the legislature, and we don't make the ask in such a large lump sum that we get just denied because of the number. So, and then finally, tell me how we're going to address maintenance and repairs in the future.
So the maintenance and repair, and we're into now, the next item is capital. We do have, each university has identified projects, and I think it gets to that last point you're making of, if we would see something like last year where there was money available for M&R, I think we want to be proactive in trying to engage them and seeking funding for projects that are anywhere from $1 to $10 million. I think we learned, it's, if we go in and we ask for something that's in that $15 to $20 to $30 million range, it's pretty hard when they're trying to think about how are they going to appropriate money to all institutions. And so we are working on that to be prepared, and we'll share that with the board of what those smaller projects are in case we're asked for that funding. I don't know if there will be any made available, but I think the chances of it are fairly high given the amount of federal funding that we continue to see flow through to the state.
Any other questions?
You were talking about the case to be made, and I thought President Choi, you looked like you were about to say something, so I just wanted to hear about how we position ourselves to the state on being an economic driver. And I thought I apologize, it looked to me like you were about to say something, and we moved on to
Thank
another
you.
point I wanted to hear.
Thank you, Curator Winokur. Related to Curator Holbrook's comments about being an economic engine for the state, in 2018, we conducted a study with Trip Umbach, and they gathered that we have a $5.4 billion impact to Missouri each year based on our activities. Now, that was 3 years ago. We're a stronger university now. So under the leadership of Curator Winokur through the academic affairs and now Curator Graves, Marshall Stewart and Bill Turpin are going to re-engage Trip and Umbach for that study. And you're absolutely right. We are the economic driver, and the Cicero report indicates that our students from our 4 universities have the highest salaries 6 months, 5 years down the road. So they get employed, and they get employed in good jobs that support the state of Missouri. So that is a message that we need to continue to share with taxpayers and the legislators and elected officials in the state. So thank you for bringing that up.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. May I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the University of Missouri's fiscal year 2023 state appropriations request for operations as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting?
So moved.
Todd, I need help. Second. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the University of Missouri fiscal year 2023 state appropriations request for operations as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting be approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition, say nay. Any abstentions? The motion carries. I'll turn it back over to you, Curator Holbrook.
Okay. Got to get to the right spot. Amendment to the CRRs.
We need to go back. We've
Back
got to do
one?
the state capital appropriation request.
Excuse me. Vice President Rapp, please give us the 2023 state capital appropriations.
So this will just be very brief. It's in your materials. They're consistent with what was presented in the capital plans and approved by the board in April. Missouri S&T is including 2 projects for the 50-50 match program, one being the engineering research laboratory renovation and addition. I think it's approximately $43 million in total, and then the systems integration and prototype development facility, which I think we referred to as Manufacturing 1 in the past, for $50 million. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any member of the board have a question or make a comment? Seeing none. See, I don't even have one this time, Ryan. May I have a motion to a motion and a second from the committee to approve that President Choi be authorized to submit to the appropriate state offices the University of Missouri's fiscal year 2023 state capital appropriations request as outlined in the materials for this meeting, and submitted new requests for any higher education capital funding directives from the state, with the caveat the board will review any new requests.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying no. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board that President Choi be authorized to submit to the appropriate state offices of the University of Missouri fiscal year 2023 state capital appropriations requests that outline the materials for this meeting and submit new requests for any higher education capital funding directives from the state be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition, say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. I turn it back over to you, Curator Holbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice President Rapp, will you present the proposed changes to the University of Missouri Collective Rules and Regulations 100.020 patent and plant variety regulations and collective rules and regulations 100.03 copyright regulations, and be available to answer any questions.
Yes, thank you, Curator Holbrook. This was really driven out of a task force that was charged by the president that I chaired. It had representation from all 4 universities. It included members of the faculty, members of the Office of Research, our Technology Transfer Office, and our finance offices. Our charge, our revenues average about $9 million to the university in terms of licensing revenue from our intellectual property on an annual basis. And we've had some big winners in the past, and we were trying to think about how could we sustainably fund and distribute revenue from our technology transfer activities, and that it would be also equitable not only in the sharing of revenue but in the sharing of cost, that we would maintain it being tech transfer services being available to our inventors, that we wouldn't replicate this across the system. The revenues then would be shared in a manner that would balance the need to cover costs and encourage investment. And then that we would also meet with intercampus faculty, the president, the chancellors, and the patent committee on a regular basis to keep them informed. This shows you what was included, and we did meet with all of those committees. We met with the vice chancellors for research, the council of chancellors. We had 2 meetings where we conducted a review of our current practices. We compared those to leading institutions, and then we've developed a set of recommendations. But I want to provide some background. This highlights our revenues average roughly $9.4 million annually. What you can see on the chart on the right is it's saying over a roughly 10-year period, you've seen 904 disclosures at Mizzou. That's led to 381 patent applications, 144 licenses, and we've had 44 that have turned into some form of product sales, but really only 1 that's produced significant income. I think the key part here is to realize that from the point of disclosure to really seeing income, it takes 6 to 10 years. So this is a long-term process, and that really informed how we wanted to think about funding it. When we looked at universities that said, who is really able to self-sustain or self-fund their technology transfer function, the only ones you could see that could consistently do that are ones that were performing $1 billion plus in research consistently. So that gave us some thoughts on how we wanted to think about this. And one of our key recommendations was when a decision is made to prosecute a patent in our current model, that decision is made by the campus, and then that cost is paid for 2 nights out of the 2 nights that is held at the system. And we said, really we ought to align that expense with the corresponding revenue. And the university that's wanting to prosecute and incur those patent expenses, should also get that income. But it shouldn't be that the 2 aren't aligned. So one just being is, if we're making a decision at a university to go try and procure a patent, we're going to pay for those prosecution costs at that level. Then the corresponding income would also go back, so that there would no longer be 2 nights held at the system. It doesn't mean that the System Technology Transfer Office won't continue to function and provide those services, but the prosecution costs and the related revenue would go to the individual universities. Also, we would pay all of our out-of-pocket expenses prior to revenue distribution. Currently, we do pay our faculty prior to paying for out-of-pocket expenses. This would bring us in line with what other universities are doing. And then the third part of this is having a consistent policy again, across all forms of IP, so just harmonizing our policies. And then really the last point gets to that alignment I talked about, but it would really then allow each university to decide how do they want to, from a strategic standpoint, what do they want to use in terms of the revenue, what level of investment do they want to make, and then how do they want to share that revenue on their individual universities. In the current CRs, it's as you'll see, it's fairly prescriptive. It's 1/3 goes to the inventor, 2/9 goes to system for tech transfer functions, 2/9 goes to the Office of Research on the individual university, and then 2/9 goes to the inventing department. So beyond the proposed changes addressing the task force recommendations, the patent committee had a couple of things they wanted to clarify in terms of when students own their IP and when they're treated like employees. Also clarifying processes for resolving any disputes, and then further defining the role and the members of the patent committee. With that, I'll take any questions, and I do have Lisa Lorenzen here with me, who leads our who joined us from Iowa State University, was critical in helping us get to this point, and her and I are happy to take any questions you might have.
Are there any questions from either the committee or the board? Seeing none, I have a comment and then something you could explain to me. I'm very supportive of the task force recommendation. I think this is the right decision to be made, and I think aligning all these things together makes a lot of sense. However, I do notice that we treat the inventors differently, whether or not it's considered the invention was made within their area of expertise or outside of their area of expertise. And I'm somewhat curious as to how often that occurs. I guess my question is, how often is somebody doing a patent or we getting a patent outside the professor's area of expertise?
So I'll answer it, and then Lisa, if you have anything you want to add. It's very infrequent. The other thing I'd note is, for that to occur, the burden of proof remains with that inventor to show clear and convincing evidence to the president and then to the patent committee that that was done outside of the scope of their responsibilities. So I think I could probably get the exact number for you, but I know when Lisa and I went over this the other day, it's just not something we see happen very often. And even if it does happen, the burden of proof lies with the inventor to prove that was the case.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, I got to find myself again. Hearing none. If there's no further discussion, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve changing the collective rules and regulations, section 100.020, patent and plant variety regulations, and collective rules regulation 100.03, copyright regulations, as amended, as noted in the materials for this meeting?
I so move.
So moved?
Second.
Second. The motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Are there any objections? Or, excuse me, abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board that the existing collective rules and regulations, section 100.020, patent and plant variety regulations, and collective rules and regulations 100.030, copyright regulations, be amended as noted in the materials for this meeting, be approved.
All right, a motion has been made. Do we have a second from the board?
Second.
All right. The motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. I turn it back over to you, Curator Holbrook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vice President Rapp, would you please make the presentation on turbines 6 and 10 at the powerhouse?
Thank you, Curator Holbrook. This was included in your materials. I would note it was included also in the 5-year capital plans that were approved at the April board meeting. We're seeking approval for a project that has an $8 million budget that will be funded out of the capital reserves held in energy management. I'm happy to answer any questions the members of the board might have on this project.
Are there any questions? Hearing none. Even I don't have one. May I have a motion and a second from the committee that the project to replace the Turbine 6 with Turbine 10 on the University of Missouri campus be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board that the project to replace Turbine 6 with Turbine 10 on the University of Missouri Columbia campus be approved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Curator Hobrock, this will turn it back over to you for your last action item.
Thank you very much for I lied at the beginning, Mr. Chairman. I have 7, not 6. I can't count very well.
That's okay.
Vice President Raff, would you please make a presentation on the Middlebush Farms Next Gen Center for Excellence?
Yes, this is a facility that is part of our Next Gen Precision Health Initiative. We've got, I think, some really productive researchers that will be located in this facility. They've already brought in over $15 million in NIH research funding. This was included in the capital plan for MU. However, it wasn't included in what was approved in April. At that time, we were estimating it would be approximately a $4 to $4.5 million project. Looking at this now, it's pushed the cost north to about $6.5 million, which is the reason it's being brought forward for the board for approval today. But I'm happy to answer any questions members of the board might have in regards to this facility.
I have one point of clarification on my understanding on the research grants that they have already received, and I'm assuming we're expecting more that would be used in this facilities. Part of that grant can be used to offset the cost of the building?
Correct.
Don't we get paid for space or something like that?
We have a facilities and administrative rate, so not to get too technical, for the total direct costs or modified total direct costs that the federal government will allow us, we get to recover an F&A rate, and approximately 30% of that is for facilities. So our facilities rate's somewhere around 30%. So if I get a qualifying dollar from the NIH, I then get to tack on 30 cents to that for facilities costs.
So on the 15 million we have, roughly 5 million, 4 million can be used for the facilities. To start offsetting the cost of investment.
That is, I think, you know, you can look at an individual project that is spread across all of our facilities. Right. You know, probably something like this, we actually make money now overall. When you look at it in total, research takes investment from the university. But a facility of this type, I haven't done the math on it, but I would estimate that it probably makes us some money.
Any other questions from the committee and/or the board? Hearing none. May I have a motion and a second for the committee that the project for the Middlebush Farm Next Gen Center of Excellence for Influenza Research for the University of Missouri Columbia campus be approved?
So moved. Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Finance Committee, we move to recommend to the full board that the project for the Middlebush Farm Next Gen Center for Excellence for Influenza Research on the University of Missouri Columbia campus be approved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Curator Hobrock, for that report.
Thank you, Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
All right, Curator Graves, I now turn it over to you for the Academic Student Affairs Research and Economic Development Committee meeting.
All right, thank you. This morning we have 4 action items for the Academic Student Affairs Research and Economic Development Committee. These include 3 proposals for new degree programs and proposed changes to the University of Missouri St. Louis faculty bylaws. Dr. Steve Graham, with the Office of Academic Affairs, will provide introductory comments on each degree program, followed by a brief presentation from the appropriate dean overseeing each newly proposed program. The first program we will review this morning is the BS in Environmental Science to be offered by the Missouri University of Science and Technology. Dr. Graham.
Okay, good morning. We're going to do something a little bit unique today in that we'll have the presenters coming in by Zoom. And so they should show up on the screen, hopefully. There we go. Okay. The first program, well, first of all, let me just say some overarching comments about all the programs. I think these are really unique programs that are taking existing resources and combining them in such a fashion to be very efficient. They're geared toward really designing programs that will be valuable to students, provide for workforce development, and really ramp up the campus's ability to address new needs and provide for good revenue as well. So the first program that we mentioned is the Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science. It's a degree from Missouri S&T that kind of fits squarely into their wheelhouse, pulls on their biological science, geological sciences, civil and environmental engineering, and chemistry, and as well as economics. This is a program that's really geared towards student success, so that they can grab students that may be departing, that got to S&T and found out the engineering wasn't the degree for them and were more interested in environmental science. So without further introduction, I'll introduce Dr. Kate Drown, who is the interim dean of the College of Arts, Sciences, and Business. Kate?
Very good. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, everybody, and good morning. I'm very happy to present to you S&T's new Bachelor of Science degree program in Environmental Science. Environmental science is an applied multidisciplinary field that explores the interaction essentially between humans and the earth. It includes the natural and physical sciences like biology, chemistry, and geology, as well as the social sciences and humanities like economics, public policy, and ethics. Environmental science allows students and researchers to study problems facing the environment and to propose solutions to issues ranging from environmental hazards and climate change to meeting the needs of a rising global population. Environmental science is a rapidly growing field, both in Missouri and nationwide, and graduates have very strong job prospects. Currently, there are far too few environmental science graduates in Missouri to meet existing job demands. For example, in 2019, there were over 1,700 Missouri job postings for environmental scientists, and 1,300 of those required specifically a BS in environmental science. But there were only 106 environmental science bachelor's degrees conferred across the entire state of Missouri that year. So demand is definitely outpacing supply of environmental science graduates. Thousands of additional jobs exist for students in programs like this in environmental planning, alternative energy, sustainability, and environmental compliance, as well as opportunities that exist in companies like Bayer and Pfizer and government agencies like the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and the Department of Natural Resources. Our BS degree in environmental science will be housed at S&T's Department of Biological Sciences. It will draw upon S&T's existing curricular strengths, faculty, and resources, and will require virtually no new investments. Operationally, it requires only the creation of 2 new courses, one first-year seminar and one senior-level capstone class. Both of these courses will be taught by existing faculty, and both courses will be hands-on, project-based experiences. Students will also benefit from research opportunities available at S&T's Ozark Research Field Station and our Center for Research in Energy and the Environment. The environmental science program will provide important opportunities for both recruitment and retention at S&T, as Steve mentioned a minute ago. The environmental science degree is an affordable program requiring only 120 hours of coursework that can easily be accomplished in 4 years. Environmental science programs also typically attract a more diverse student body than S&T does overall, and so we believe that by adding environmental science, we may be able to attract more women and underrepresented minority students to S&T. Environmental science will also help us in our retention efforts as it creates a flexible, high-quality academic pathway for students who come to S&T to study engineering, but who decide along the way to go a different direction and thus are at risk of leaving us altogether. In an average year, in fact, about 30 students leave S&T every year from related degree programs in civil engineering, geological engineering, environmental engineering, and biological sciences. We believe that if we can retain some portion of those students who might otherwise leave, as well as recruit additional new students who are interested in environmental issues, then we'll be able to enroll about 20 new students per year in an environmental science degree program. This environmental science degree has widespread support across the entire Missouri S&T campus, and you've seen letters of support from the departments of environmental engineering, geology, geological and petroleum engineering, economics, chemistry, and history and political science. You've also seen my own letter explaining how well this program aligns with the goals and visions of the College of Arts, Sciences, and Business. This program advances our college's strategic plan to increase the visibility and diversity of our programs, increase recruitment of undergraduate students, support the retention of our existing students, and decrease overall time to graduation. Colleagues at UMKC have also provided their enthusiastic endorsement and see this program as both an important retention tool for our campus, as well as a unique program that will not materially compete with existing programs at other campuses. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions. And we also have with us Dr. David Duvernell, who's the chair of the Department of Biological Sciences and the architect of this program. And between us, I'm sure we can answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Drown. Are there any questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, if there's no further discussion, may I have a motion and a second from the committee that the new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science at the Missouri University of Science and Technology be approved?
So moved.
Second. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Are there any abstentions? The motion carries. The committee, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the new degree for proposal for a Bachelor of Science in Environmental Science at Missouri S&T be approved.
Okay, thank you, Curator Graves. We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I
Okay.
have a quick question I meant to ask, and I didn't get it in there. I think it said there were 1,700 roughly job openings in Missouri a year. How many other institutions are offering this similar degree in Missouri? Does anybody know?
I'm going to take a wild guess and say 3. Mizzou has something in their Kaffner, and then there's a program at UMKC, and
It says Columbia College, Central Methodist, Lindenwood, Maryville, Westminster, Evangel, and Lincoln in our materials.
Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Back to you, Curator Graves.
Okay, the second program we'll review this morning is the BS in Data Science and Analysis to be offered by the University of Missouri St. Louis. Mr. Graham.
okay. Once again, it's a very creative program bridging across several different fields. Data science and engineers now can work in large corporations, a variety of occupations in business, health, economics. It's got really good support. It uses statistics and large data set to be able to look at things. It's the first baccalaureate program in the system. I would ask Dean Andy Kirsten from the Dean of College of Arts and Science at UMSL. And Andy, if you could keep your comment, we're running a little behind, so if you could keep your comments fairly brief on this program, it should be fairly self-explanatory. Andy?
Great. Good morning. Curators, thank you for the opportunity to present and answer questions about UMSL's proposed bachelor's degree in data science and analysis. Data scientists and analysts are those people and organizations who can transform a sea of data into insights that help their organizations solve difficult problems. With the growth of data collection and computing power, this type of work has found its way into industries as diverse as supply chain, ecology, government, pharmaceuticals, social services, information systems, and more. In our rapidly changing economy, the demand for data science savvy employees in Missouri is moving from the master's level to the bachelor's level. Job openings for data scientists at the bachelor's level in Missouri increased 15% year over year from 2015 to 2020. The labor market analysis company Burning Glass projects a regional growth in data science jobs of 49% during the next 5 years. Clearly, this trend will continue. UMSL has an ideal opportunity at this moment to meet this workforce demand and grow the inclusive talent pool for the St. Louis region. Our new degree program, the Bachelor of Science in Data Science and Analysis, directly addresses that demand. The BS DSA is an interdisciplinary program that will provide students with the knowledge, skills, and credentials to advance in a data-rich and rapidly changing workplace. The curriculum we propose links statistical and data science skills with a foundation for analysis in a career field like economics, social sciences, business, or biological science. Its graduates will be able to apply statistical concepts and data science methods to real-world problems in their chosen field of interest immediately upon graduation. The core data science component of this degree builds on UMSL's already existing certificates in actuarial science and data science. After completing the core, BS DSA students will take a series of courses in an emphasis area that provides each with analysis and application skills for their chosen domain. Each area has been constructed such that with just 2 additional courses, a student can earn a minor or a certificate. This structure is purposeful, as it allows students to stack credentials and highlight their deep knowledge background. UMSL is uniquely positioned to offer this degree because we have extensive data science coursework, related certificates, and faculty already in place. There are no new courses that must be built to establish this degree. Finally, this program aligns directly with the UMSL mission, We Transform Lives. The direct result of this effort will be a job-ready, educated, and empowered workforce that keeps St. Louis a desirable place for corporations, technology startups, and other industry innovators who have the power to scale up growth and bring stability to our region's economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dean Kirsten. Are there any questions from the committee? Seeing none, if there's no further discussion, may I have a motion and a second from the committee that the new degree program for a Bachelor of Science in Data Science and Analysis at the University of Missouri St. Louis be approved?
I so move.
I'll second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Okay, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the new degree program for a Bachelor of Science in Data Science and Analysis at UMSL be approved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, the motion has been seconded. Do we have any further discussion?
Just a comment. I think it's a very growing field, and I'm glad to see that we are going to add this program to UMSL. I know we need a lot of this type of skill at Express Scripts and Cigna, so very excited.
All right, thank you, Curator Brunsick. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Back to you, Curator Graves.
All right, the third and final program we will review this morning is the BA in Media Art and Design to be offered by the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Dr. Graham.
Okay, the BA program in Media Art and Design, it's a flexible interdisciplinary program. It's designed to create students that can work in advertising, marketing, and visual communications. It takes a lot of the coursework that exists now and sort of bundles it together, once again, like the other programs we've seen today. Tries to make really good use of existing resources and faculty and create a program that helps provide the workforce for the Kansas City area where this is actually great demand for this. I would ask the interim dean, Kati Toivayan, to make some brief comments. And once again, Kati, if you could keep it relatively short so that we can keep it moving along.
All right. Thank Thank you, Dr. Graham, and thank you, Curator Graves, for the opportunity to present this proposal. The University of Missouri-Kansas City College of Arts and Sciences proposes to offer an in-person and hybrid BA in Media, Art, and Design, which will begin generating net revenue in its first year. This degree is the outcome of collaborative efforts by 2 departments and their faculty, the Department of Communication Studies and the Art and Art History Department. The Media, Art, and Design degree will be appealing to both transfer students and first-time college students and draws almost entirely from existing resources, including intercampus collaboration and course sharing between UMKC and UMSL, and the potential for the same with MU. Letters of support from relevant faculty and deans are included in the proposal. This new degree is a creative reimagining of existing assets as it creates efficiencies in curriculum, space, equipment, and staff. The proposed new degree program will replace the Film and Media Studies emphasis area and the minor in Art and Visual Communication. To reach additional efficiencies, the Film and Media Arts program will be merging with the Art and Art History Department. This new combined department, also named Media, Art, and Design, will allow for technical equipment, computer labs, and staff resources to be shared and streamlined. The 36 credit hour major will allow students to map out their own education and tailor it to their specific areas of focus. The curriculum has 15-hour core and a broad list of electives, which provide students with the opportunity to specialize. The degree will also ensure graduates have the necessary skills to be versatile and competitive in the job market. The flexible curriculum makes this degree option particularly attractive to transfer students, which currently represent over half of the undergraduate students in these 2 departments. This degree will reach new students while aligning with market trends and employer demand. It will provide graduates with the kind of contemporary, cross-cutting skills needed for employment in the region. The need for this degree is supported by workforce data that shows a strong market for graduates of the proposed degree program in Kansas City and the region. Graphic designers, social media managers, and other kinds of visual communication specialists in fields like advertising and media production are in demand. According to Burning Glass, there were over 8,000 unique job postings for graduates with a degree in this field in Missouri and its contiguous states. All such professions are expected to grow faster than the average labor market over the next decade. Graduates will also earn competitive salaries with a median salary income listed as $57,000 in Missouri and its contiguous states. Employers have validated the market demand for this program, evidenced by letters of support from several companies included in the proposal. In summary, the new Media, Art, and Design degree builds on the strengths of the existing faculty and available resources, and it combines strong programs into a new, forward-thinking, and marketable degree that we believe will be popular and will set our students up for success. Now, today I have 2 of the primary authors of the proposal here with me today, Associate Dean Caitlin Horstman, who is also Associate Professor in the Department of Communication Studies, and Elijah Gowing, Professor of Studio Art and Chair of the Art and Art History Department. They'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dean Toivonen. Are there any questions from the committee for any of these individuals? Right, if there's no further discussion, may I have a motion, a second from the committee, that the new degree program, new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Arts in Media, Art, and Design at the University of Missouri, Kansas City be approved?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the new degree proposal for a Bachelor of Arts in Media, Art, and Design at UMKC be approved.
Thank you, Curator Graves. We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Okay, Curator Graves, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, the final action item for the committee will be to review and approve proposed changes to Collective Rule and Regulation 300.040, Faculty Bylaws of the University of Missouri St. Louis. Dr. Graham will provide an overview of the proposed changes, and then we will open it up for questions. Dr. Gray.
Okay, thank you. This is typically an item that would probably land on the consent agenda, but because today's discussion is about governance and how it's shared, we thought it would be kind of helpful to highlight it here. Basically, what the faculty bylaws of each of the campuses do reside into the collected rules, and so that becomes an obligation then on the part of the board to review those and make sure that they approve. This has been vetted by the Faculty Senate, by the General Counsel's Office, and by the Chancellor Soblick. This is really just tuning their faculty bylaws, and as I mentioned, these are minor changes that would probably end up on the consent agenda. They're changing the name of one, they're collapsing two committees to create Academic Advisory and Assessment Committee. They're renaming the reference to the IFC, which is now the Intercampus Faculty Cabinet, and they're just listing some of the faculty who would be engaged in voting and their roles in the faculty governance at UMSL. Once again, minor changes, but just to show you how those rules, as bylaws change on the campus, they are then rolled up into the collected rules. So any particular questions?
I do have one. What's the purpose of the change to call it a cabinet?
The cabinet, the IFC has for a long time been a body that really advises the president. A lot of times he has confidential information that he shares with the body. There's a lot of times when he wants to get out ahead and get some advice from the faculty. And so it really felt that it was more an advisory kind of cabinet action rather than it's a council that's elected. The members are selected from each of the 4 campuses, but sometimes in different ways. So after discussion about the nature and interaction with the president and their desire to keep those conversations confidential and let him get advice in a candid way, the body decided that it was best for them to redefine themselves clearly as a faculty cabinet body.
Right. Are there any other questions from anyone else on the committee or anyone else? All right, if there's no further discussion, may I have a motion to second from the committee that the proposed changes to the collected rule and regulation 300.040 faculty bylaws of the University of Missouri St. Louis be approved?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Are there any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic Development Committee, I move to recommend to the full board that the proposed changes to CR&R 300.040 UMSL faculty bylaws be approved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, Curator Graves.
All right, this concludes the portion for the Academic, Student Affairs, Research, and Economic
Can I
Development
make
Committee.
one comment at the end of this? I just wanted to compliment the 3 universities. All of these showed a real efficiency with faculty and space, and we always talk about trying to hit workforce needs. And I thought all 3 of those aggressively worked towards that goal. So I thought this was kind of a banner day on degree grantings.
Thank you. Very accurate.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Curator Winokur, for those comments. Okay, Curator Lehman, I now turn it over to you for the Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Committee meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Today, the Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Committee has one information item, fiscal year 2021 Internal Audit, Compliance, and Ethics Annual Report, and one action item, fiscal year 2022 Risk Assessment and Proposed Internal Audit and Compliance Plans. Chief Audit and Compliance Officer Michelle Peranio will present both items and answer any questions. Michelle?
Thank you, Curator Lehman. And it is my pleasure to review with you the completed work of this past year and the work completed since our last meeting. This slide is a snapshot of our fiscal year 2021 internal audit plan final status, and the 44% completed represents 14 consulting and insurance engagements, and the 16% in process represents 4 assurance engagements and 1 consulting engagement. So 2 points I would like to make about this past year's work is that performing audits became a lower priority as leadership, faculty, and staff across all 4 of the universities and the health system focused efforts on the COVID-19 pandemic. And this is reflected in our numbers, as at the beginning of the year for about the first 6 months, it was predominantly consulting engagements. And this shifted over the last 6 months, and that 4 of the 5 engagements that are now in process are the traditional type of audits. And I would like to speak a bit about our 5th engagement that's in process. It's part of our ongoing work to develop and implement monitoring routines in areas with the potential for fraud. We are finalizing testing work for identifying anomalies in the management of grants, and this will help us identify areas for further investigation. And we want to extend the same approach to retail operations and purchasing cards. We also completed in this year an assurance engagement under attorney-client privilege and 12 investigations. So in summary of some of the high-level things that we're seeing, is we see these kind of consistently, and there are opportunities in our work for improving outcomes and better managing risks across the organization. And that is really communicating clear and direct guidance, roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities is very important as a foundation for getting to consistent performance. And management periodically evaluating their control activities against what their desired outcomes and objectives are in their units results in process and our control adjustments on a routine basis. So management and staff working together is really how the first 2 points get achieved. And doing this will improve both the clear guidance and the periodic adjustments in communications. And we are seeing more of this occurring as we get across the organization. And System Ethics, Compliance, and Audit Services is also collaborating with the MU Health Compliance and Risk and Regulatory Affairs on audit and compliance control frameworks that we will be using with management to understand what their current control activities are and to use this document not only to document what those control activities are and assess where we are, where the gaps are, and where we need improvement, but where we're doing well, but also as a training and educational tool as to why these things are important for the organization. So this is a summary of our work completed since the 2021 Audit Committee meeting. We did complete an internal audit. We completed the risk assessment and our follow-up procedures to substantiate that management action plans were actually completed. And we, again, we continue to work on finalizing monitoring tools for research. We are completing field work for 3 audits. Planning is in process for 1 audit, and we're actively working 1 investigation. This is the audit that was completed. It's the lab safety at Missouri S&T, and this is the 3rd of 4 audits across the organization in this area. The 2 previous were at MU and UMSL, and we now also have in process the lab safety audit for UMKC. A consistent finding across all of the 3 audits that we've completed is the need to develop and maintain a list of accurate lab space and uses. And all 3 universities do have an active inspection process. It's just important that they understand where all the labs are that they need to inspect. And the S&T academic deans are committed to addressing the issues identified in this audit. So the written annual report in your packet provides you additional information and details about the other audits and consulting engagements and the number of investigations that we completed since the last committee meeting for fiscal year 2021. So now I would like to move to the fiscal year 2022 risk assessment and proposed plans.
Michelle, I might ask if anybody has any questions at this point. Thank you.
You're welcome. Is that slide program up? Well, I want to present for approval the proposed fiscal year 2022 risk assessment and internal audit and compliance plans. It's a key responsibility of internal audit and compliance to update our rolling audit plan for the purpose of aligning our resources with the areas of most concern at this point in time. External trends for higher education and healthcare were reviewed. Major strategic objectives and initiatives underway were considered, leadership concerns, and what we know from auditing and changes in compliance regulations were all factored in developing the plan. The trends impacting higher education are really impact the size of the traditional student market, both in terms of just not as many students, traditional students in this demographic across the United States, plus the impact to international students coming to the United States due to COVID and other considerations. Cybersecurity risks continue to be a concern across all industries, particularly with increasing digitization and sharing of the information with third parties. And we also have increasing complexity in regulations, and in the higher ed space, this is most notably related to research, mostly driven by cybersecurity concerns and national security concerns, and the desire to make sure that critical research is protected. So MUHC is feeling the healthcare industry trends really are impacting MUHC. These are trends that have been notable across the United States, and they're really accelerating in our market. And it's the shift from inpatient to outpatient procedures, and from fee-for-service to value-based care and bundled payments. And pharmaceutical management care is shifting from providers to insurers and health plans. And also the state of Missouri managed Medicaid plans reimbursement reductions. All of these are impacting MU healthcare. And both the universities and MU Health are challenged to take on additional priorities without further developing organizational bandwidth and capacity, which leads to how do we keep staff motivated? How do we keep moving at the speed we need to? It makes a very challenging environment for our leaders. So our criteria for developing the plan was really about avoiding areas that are undergoing changes unless we are part of the change effort or come in after the fact to audit progress to make sure it's aligned with the desired pace and direction of the change. And we really want to make sure our resources are focused in assisting with achieving the major initiatives and strategic objectives. So on the plan, our major areas of focus continue to be in cybersecurity, just because this is an inherently high-risk area. Research, because it's a very important strategic objective for our organization. Third-party vendor management is becoming more important, particularly as more data storage is going to the cloud and as we continue, and for outsourced work deliverables. We can outsource our work, but we continue to need to be responsible to ensure that we are getting delivered to us the contractual obligations. So I'm going to shift to the compliance side, and this is just a reminder of this continues to guide us as we build out the ethics and compliance program, that we really want to reinforce the culture of caring, integrity, and accountability, and empower staff to really own and take responsibility for what's doing right and reporting concerns. And we want to protect the organization while finding creative ways to further the mission. We do not want to hold up business. We believe we can protect the organization and stay compliant with important regulations in a way that business can continue and move forward. And we do all of this consistent with federal sentencing guidelines for the effective elements. So our work in compliance will continue to be complete the foundational elements, which is rollout of the code of conduct, which that will occur this fall semester. We want to continue building the compliance professionals in a collaborative network. We want to leverage standards and regulatory frameworks as monitoring tools. I discussed this further, but it will help us really understand where are we and where do we need to go. And also, it will provide the why behind a lot of these regulations for managers. And we want to formalize overall and targeted compliance training education. And continue to work collaboratively towards a corrective action policy that's with consistent disciplinary guidelines to resolve serious issues. And that's important because right now, that work is being done. We just want to make sure across the whole organization we're being consistent in how that's addressed. And as we further integrate and talk about and share these ideas across the different components, we want to make sure that that's in place. And we are also establishing metrics so we can measure the progress of these initiatives, but also how will we know that our compliance program overall is being effective. It's more than just reporting on how many people were trained or educated or took the modules or how many cases did we look at. So this is another important initiative we're focusing on this year, is to really get to a better continuous risk assessment. With really what we want to get to is to be able to provide a risk profile for each campus. So there will be a wider gathering of information, and through surveys and supplemental conversations with leadership at all levels, and a tighter integration by collecting unit-specific information. That will be part of the control frameworks that I discussed. And so that we will also be establishing a committee to periodically, quarterly get together and share across the disciplines like Office of General Counsel, Internal Audit Compliance, and the different risk management. What are we seeing? What are the emerging concerns? So we can continuously look at this and get more specific for each of our different areas rather than more of a high-level assessment as we've been doing. So our key takeaways is we're really focused in the areas of consolidation, research, cybersecurity, emerging issues, support for improving partner vendor management, and disaster recovery business continuity plan development. And the compliance plan is focused on completing implementation of foundational elements, building compliance network, and establishing a method for monitoring compliance with regulations. And we continue to work to help move the UM system to a continuous risk assessment process in the coming year. So that completes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any questions?
I do. Michelle, I'm excited to hear about the Code of Conduct coming out this fall. We've talked about that for a while, so I'm excited to know that's coming. It's very important for an organization. It's something that goes a long way when there is a problem, because clear communication of the standards is very important. To that end, as you're rolling out the training, I hope that you will consider also providing some training to the board.
Yes, we are. That absolutely will happen as well.
Thank you.
And thank you for bringing that up.
Do we have any other questions? If no further discussion, may I have a motion and a second from the committee to approve the fiscal year 2022 risk assessment and proposed internal audit and compliance plan as presented to you and outlined in the materials for this meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Any abstentions? Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Audit Committee, we move to recommend to the full board the fiscal year 2022 risk assessment and proposed internal audit and compliance plans as presented to you in the outline materials for this meeting.
Thank you, Curator Lehman. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Do we have any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passed. Okay, back to you, Curator Lehman.
Yes. Can I get a motion and a second for the Audit Committee to conduct a closed session this afternoon?
So moved.
Second.
This concludes our business for public session. Oh, I guess we need a roll call, correct? Sorry.
Curator Burnsick?
Yes?
Curator Graham?
Yes.
Curator Lehman?
Yes.
Okay. All committee votes in favor.
This concludes our business for public session for the Audit Committee. We will reconvene in closed session later this afternoon.
Okay, thank you, Curator Lehman. Good work. Curator Winokur, I now turn it over to you for the Health Affairs Committee report.
Great. Good morning. The Health Affairs Committee met on June 17th. We had 6 informational items and 1 action item. Dr. Rick Barron will present a summary of the presentations for us this morning. And from these reports, you will see the continued accomplishments and opportunities for MU Healthcare, the School of Medicine, and NextGen. You're not hearing me, are you?
We'll hear you better. Just
Better. Do I need to repeat any of that, or are we good?
I think we're good.
We're good. Okay. Sorry about that.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Barrett.
Curator Winokur. I'm delighted to give an update on our progress at the University of Missouri School of Medicine and at MU Healthcare. I want to thank the Health Affairs Committee and all of the curators for your unwavering support, and in particular, to me during this last year since I joined the University of Missouri as your Executive Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs. This is a slide of the 3 amazing buildings that are going up on our campus related to healthcare. The creation of this infrastructure will allow us to continue to pursue our shared vision for serving Missourians and improving their health. What these buildings really highlight are 3 areas of excellence. First, excellence in education. The Sinclair School of Nursing building is rising up quickly. Other recent health-related education projects have been the Patient-Centered Care Learning Center that was completed only a few years ago, along with the development of the Springfield Clinical Campus. And I will give you an update on the Springfield campus in a few moments. A second area of excellence is in clinical care. And with your support, we have broken ground on the new Children's Hospital, and we are developing ambulatory care projects to better serve Missourians. And the third area of excellence is in research. And through your commitment to the NextGen Precision Health Initiative, we are about to launch even greater collaboration and discovery with the opening of the NextGen building. Which brings me to my next slide, which is a beautiful rendition of the NextGen, artist rendition of the NextGen building at night. But as you drive by campus, you'll see that the building is essentially almost complete. It's really beautiful. And as I've emphasized in the past, the building is on time and on budget. We are all very excited about the completion of the building and are actively working with scientists that will be moving into the building in the next few months. Please save the date of the grand opening on October 19th. The new Children's Hospital planning and construction is proceeding. We know we need to deliver this building on time and on budget as well, and given the rising costs of construction, we know that this will be a challenge, but we believe we will succeed. We will open the building in 2024, and the plan is in the summer of 2024. We have begun preparing the site and moving earth, as I showed you in the second slide. And we will have a formal groundbreaking ceremony on October 1, and we hope many of you can attend. So as you can tell, October will be a big month for building progress. We are working closely with Jackie Lewis, our Vice Chancellor for Advancement, who is developing a plan to encourage giving for the Children's Hospital project. I said I was going to make a few comments about the Springfield Clinical Campus. It's been 5 years since we opened the Springfield Clinical Campus of the School of Medicine, and I believe it's been a huge success. We have a new leader of that campus, Associate Dean David Haustein, who reports to Dean Zweig. All MU, and he is a School of Medicine grad from Mizzou. All MU medical students spend their first 2 years on the Columbia campus, of course. Then, up to a third of the class goes to Springfield in their third year of medical school for the clinical clerkships. And at any time, we have about 50 students on the Springfield campus, which, again, has been a great success, in part due not only to the students and our faculty, but to our community partners. This is a slide, a graphic showing our research productivity at the MU School of Medicine. It's basically a subset of what was shown earlier about research productivity for the whole system. So we continue to have a great deal of success in increasing research in the MU School of Medicine. And this slide shows our research revenues since 2018 and how they, 17 actually, and how they continue to rise. The top line of the graph shows all research revenue expenditures, and below that, AAU Phase 1 awards, and below that, AAU research expenditures. So AAU awards to the School of Medicine are primarily NIH federal funds, not exclusively, but primarily. And the awards number indicates how much we were awarded that year, and then the expenditure number indicates how much we spent that year. And of course, there's always a lag time between when we are awarded the grant and when we spend the money. These numbers only go through April of 2021, so we have 2 months to go to finalize our 2021 data, and it looks like we will probably break the $60 million in total research expenditures, which would be a sign of healthy, growing research portfolio. Still, as Dr. Choi mentioned, President Choi mentioned earlier, we need to do even better. And as I've stated in the past, if we use 2019 as our starting point, we plan to double all these research metrics by 2024, and I know that we can do that. I wanted to say a few words about our continuing response to COVID. On May 13th, our healthcare teams gathered outside to reflect back on what we have lost and accomplished over the last year. It was a moving occasion, and we had not only leadership speakers, but we also had representatives of families who lost loved ones and from survivors of COVID who got through the experience with our help. Missouri continues to work toward comprehensive vaccination, and in Boone County, we are up to about 50% of adults immunized, which is really fantastic. As we know, our expertise helped drive campus response to testing, vaccination, and in providing clinical care. As we move into the next phase of COVID, we have revised masking policy. We're not wearing masks here today, and we are slowly and safely returning to a full return to campus. Now our citizens can get testing and vaccinations at their local care providers, and we no longer need to be the site of mass vaccination on behalf of the community. This is a slide summarizing MU financials, and I wanted to put both on the same slide. I know it makes the print on the bottom a little small, but I think it's readable. And we continue, MU Health Care System continues to perform well financially despite the challenges that we faced this last year. The graph shows our year-to-date revenues through May and compares this to our end of the year in 2019 and 2020 numbers, and we still have 1 month remaining in the year. The obvious dip in 2020 was due to COVID. And the bottom line, there's a lot of data on this slide, but the bottom line is that our current profit margin is 7.2%. This table shows that we still assuming the projection through the end of the year, this table shows that we still hope to finish this year with a good operating margin. And as you can see in the table below, our other financial metrics continue to exceed our forecast and to meet Moody's A-rated criteria. Our challenges at the bottom are related to days in cash on hand and our accounts receivable. But we believe that these are due to our recent revenue cycle conversion and that these issues will be resolved in the next 90 days. So, of course, there are other challenges beside the ones I just alluded to. Recruiting successful faculty is highly competitive around the country, for both clinical and research faculty. The areas that we are focusing most on, and we need to recruit in a lot of areas, but the ones that are getting a lot of attention right now is in cardiology, neurologists and neurosurgeons, and oncologists. We believe that we can persuade physicians and scientists to relocate to the University of Missouri, given all that we have to offer. We do need to continue to sustain our clinical growth and to grow philanthropy, because as we have emphasized many times, the success in these areas is really the jet fuel that accelerates our research and research success. And there are many pressures for us to maintain our clinical financial success that I showed in the prior slide. And leading these is the challenge of managed Medicaid. We have a contract with one of the 3 managed Medicaid carriers in the state, and we are very, very close to finalizing negotiations with the second carrier. And we are continuing talks with the third carrier, and we are hopeful that we will come to a resolution with that carrier as well. But we know that whatever we end up negotiating with all of these carriers, the income from these contracts will be less than it has been in past years. So we have to find other ways to make up the difference. And that will be through good management of our resources, through new product line development, and through continued growth of the healthcare system. And with that, I want to show one final slide, and that is recognizing Ron Ashworth. I don't see Ron here today, but he was at the Health Affairs Committee, and I want to highlight Mr. Ashworth because he was recognized recently with 2 major honors. One was from the Missouri Attorney General, and he received an award as an extraordinary citizen of Missouri who always goes above and beyond to make Missouri a better place to live. And the second honor was a new endowed professorship in his name that was established by Bill and Nancy Thompson. The new Ron Ashworth Endowed Professorship in Child Development goes to the Thompson Center Medical Director. And currently, the Thompson Center Medical Director is Dr. Ben Black, who is one of our outstanding pediatricians and who is extremely grateful for this honor. And at that, I'll conclude my comments, Curator Winokur, and I'll be glad to take any questions.
Questions? Anyone? Okay. You also received in your packet a finance update, and Dr. Barron, you may want to stay in case they have any questions on this. It was included in your meeting materials. Are there any questions from the board regarding that report? Okay. You also received a compliance report. Any questions about the compliance report? You did a very good job last week. You covered everything. The only other action of the Health Affairs Committee was to approve the minutes of the April 13th meeting, which was unanimously approved by the committee last Thursday. Thank you, Dr. Barron.
Thank you, Curators.
That concludes our report.
Okay, thank you, Curator Winokur. Curator Williams, I now turn it over to you for the Governance, Compensation, and Human Resources Committee meeting.
I'm doing this in advance. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. The Governance, Compensation, and Human Resources Committee has one information item and one action item. The information item, a full written report for the UM system annual benefits was provided in your board materials for your review. Vice President Marcia Fisher will highlight some of the areas of the report and be available to answer all of Mr. Holbrock's questions. Or I should say Curator Holbrock's questions.
Thank you, Curator Williams. As you said, the full report is in your materials, but I thought I'd take a few minutes to highlight a few areas of interest. If you look at page 2 and 3 of your report, we provided some information of the impact of COVID on the benefit plans. And it's interesting to note that, of course, there were some increased costs to the plans related to COVID testing or care related to COVID, but there were also a reduction to our medical plan because of elective surgeries were delayed or postponed. So overall, that was a net, the net impact on that was a reduction to our medical plans of approximately $12.8 million. There also deferred dental of about 18%. I also wanted to highlight for you a chart on page 4 that shows the makeup of our university benefit plans. And the purpose of highlighting this is about 92% of the cost of our benefit plans relate to retirement, the medical plans, as well as the retiree medical plans. And I'll highlight when we look at our strategic plan of moving forward that we're really focusing our evaluations in those areas. The third area to highlight for you is that for the 2021 plan, we had an aggressive goal to have redesign and cost reductions of our 2021 plans with the expectations of 10%. So we undertook a vigorous review and made some design changes that did shift some of the cost to those that were utilizing the plans and also some cost reductions. And we're hoping in 2021 or expecting that we'll have a cost avoidance in about $25.5 million. I'll highlight for you related to the retirement plan on page 9, just a reminder that we administer 3 different plans depending on when an individual was hired into the university. We have the full pension plan, we have a hybrid that has a component of the pension and a component of defined contribution. And under the board's leadership, effective October of 2019, we have a full contribution plan. And that's just important to note. That was an important decision to make as far as recruiting and what employees are seeking in today's market, as well as important in being sustainable in our defined benefit plan. And then always in the annual report of interest to folks is that the actuarial report is attached. And so I highlight for you that our pension plan or defined benefit is funded at about 81.2%. And I note that that is above the national average, which is around 70%. Let me advance a couple of slides here. The last 2 areas that I wanted to highlight for you, is when I highlighted the 92%. So over the next 3 years in benefits, and I won't go through all these, but they're in your materials, as well as in retirement, we will be looking at those areas to have them be effective plans as well as cost-effective. This next slide really is a nice snapshot way of looking at how we're reviewing these. Some cost avoidance, some liability reduction, some's compliance, and of course some is recruitment and retention. And the last one that I want to highlight for you is talking about our leave plans. So leave is very valued and important in recruiting and retaining. And what you see on this slide and in your materials is our current leave plan. We currently have what I would call a traditional leave plan that's broken into kind of discrete buckets: vacation, sick, personal days, holidays, so forth. If you look at the value of the leave plans, overall it's approximately 14% of eligible salaries and wages. So that's an important investment, and we want to, over the next several months, evaluate, are we having effective use of the leave programs? And I have on your screen for you the guiding principles that we want to modernize the plan. We want to improve the cost effectiveness of leave programs. We want to design leave programs that promote work-life balance. And we want to explore differentiating leave by staff type and industry. So this will be important work that we do over the next several months or longer. It's a complicated process, and there will be a lot of decisions and evaluations along the way. So with that, that's my prepared remarks, but I'm happy to answer any questions that Curator Hobrock or anyone else might have.
And we're not picking on Curator Hobrock. We know he has some specific questions because he was kind enough to kind of let us know. So are there any questions?
Okay. I'm going to refer to your leave program, and I want to make sure that my understanding is correct. I think it is. A new employee at the University of Missouri, I think by my calculation of your chart, gets 28 days of paid time off the first year. If not during the first year, at least their second year. I'm not sure whether you can take it your first year or not. I'll just say your second year here, 28 days, which I think is pretty high. And then if, on top of that, they could have 12 days of sick leave, for a total of 40 days of paid time off, which I think is high. And I will leave it at that and hope that we can look at that. Marcia, you and I have had a long conversation about this, so it is not a surprise, but I want to point this out that somebody's not looked at it, and I make another point of this chart, and I'm going to pick on Steve Graham first because he's retiring, and second because he's not in the room right now. But if assuming Steve Graham had not used any sick leave, he could take 432 days off right now. Accumulated sick leave according to our plan. 432 days is pushing 2 years. So I understand that we don't suffer the financial impact if it's not taken. And I understand sick leave, if you look at the numbers you put up there, is not a huge number. Well, it's a big number, but relative to other things. But I have, those numbers cause me to take pause. And as we go forward, Curator Williams, and we look at this program, I think that we have to be very mindful of the financial costs of this university. I've already made comment relative to the cost of benefits when Vice President Rapp was up, so I got that point out, Vice President Fisher, so I let you off the hook there. We need to, as we're going forward with this stuff, we need to evaluate it and then remind this board that we're paying on the defined contribution plan in excess of the normal contributions that we pay based on the employees who are currently active here. We're paying an additional $80 million to catch up on that plan based upon, I understand we're 81% funded, and that's better than most pension plans in the country. Thank you for thank you for being that well, and I appreciate that. But that's an additional $80 million that we're having to pay out every year that could be used for salaries, could be used for research, could be used for attracting all sorts of things, because we've let the benefits exceed what we've set away in the past, and now we have to make it up because we're on the downhill side of this plan. When I take it all and I put it together, and again, I'm speaking strictly from the financial side of the university. I'm not speaking from the human resource side of the university. I'm speaking from the financial side. There's available to us, if we had this under control and dealt with it right, in my estimation, and Ryan and I have battered this number back around, $80 million on the pension side. I think $30 million on the benefit side. Ryan thinks I'm a little high. Let's compromise it at $20 million. That's $100 million. That's real money. So I encourage you, Curator Williams, as we're approaching these things and opening this up, that we look very hard at the financial impact. And when we talk about paid time off, I understand the box the university got put in. So in the year 2021, my 28 days became 29 days because an additional day of holiday was granted this year. And we just have to be careful that this doesn't expand and expand and expand and expand. With that, I will be quiet.
Marcia?
I might just, and I know you know this, but for the benefit of other board members, when we speak of modernizing, so unused sick leave, if someone leaves, they're not paid out for it. But if at the time of retirement and if they're in the defined benefit plan, it can go towards service credit. Well, now that new employees, as of 2019, are not in the defined benefit, they're in the defined contribution, it really is a different different incentives for people to save it or use it. So it's an important thing to evaluate, as you say. And I do take the perspective of it is a very valued leave by employees, and I want to accomplish both being fiscally responsible as well as being able to recruit and retain our best faculty and staff, which I know you and I both agree on that. And it'll be work to find that balance, and I'm sure we can get it done.
And I know in our conversations, we've talked about the fiscal responsibility and being good stewards of the money that we're receiving from alumni, the government, and everyone else. And I know that Marcia is going to work hard to balance what this board is looking for, both financially and from human resources, and making sure she works with all groups on the university's campuses to make sure that we're giving them a more modern product that they have better options in, but that also addresses these fiscal concerns that are digging a hole further and further.
Thank you.
So
Now that
no-
we've answered the questions that we were prepared for, are there any other questions?
All right, well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to highlight some of that.
All right, if there are no other or no additional questions, we'll move to our action item. And the action item is to move that the Governance, Compensation, and Human Resources Committee go into executive session later today for the reasons stated in the meeting notice. Can I get a second?
Second.
Cindy, can you do a roll call?
Curator Burnsick?
Yes.
Curator Winokur?
Yes.
Curator Williams?
Yes.
All committee votes in favor.
Thank you, Cindy. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the business of the Governance, Compensation, and Human Resources Committee for public session.
All right, thank you, Curator Williams. Good work. We're now going to take a 30-minute break for lunch. Everyone, please return, let's just say at noon, for continuation of public session. Thank you, Cindy. Where will lunch be held at?
So lunch for everyone is just actually straight across the hall.
Okay.
Should be
So we'll
set up and
return-
ready.
Okay, we'll return at noon. See you then. Enjoy lunch.